Well, hello all. We are here tonight to talk about something really interesting. I don't know if this has ever been done before, but we're going to do it. There's a lot of nonsense going around, a lot of talk that is worthless, basically. Impressions, opinions, because of the election coming up April 5th. We have 11 individuals that are running against some incumbents, and I want to tell you a story. A little over a year ago probably now, I was at a committee meeting, and you know they always hold these committee meetings during the day or early in the evening, and if you've been at committee meetings and did any public comment, you noticed that nobody ever listens to you. You just endure your comment. Well, after my comment was over, I made the point of saying to, I think it was the Finance Committee at that time, I made a point of saying, we are done talking and trying to communicate to you because you aren't listening. From now on, we are going to be watching your votes. That's what we told them. And after the meeting was over, the chairman of the Finance Committee came over and said, Dan, you can't just watch the votes. I says, well, what else are we supposed to do? Well, you have to listen to what our conversation is before the vote. I had two comments, and I said, Dave, a problem. Your meetings are during the day or at very inopportune times. How are we supposed to listen to what you say before the votes? Because you aren't recording these meetings. Another problem we're going to be trying to take care of this next session. And another thing, when it's all said and done, what matters most? What you say or what you do? And it's the vote that matters. And he wasn't really happy with my comments, but I said, that's reality, sorry. We're going to be watching your votes. And that's what we're doing now. We hear a lot of nonsense being spoken of by some of these incumbents. Not all of them, some of them. And actually, free and dodge is the butt of some of them. You, the people, are being ridiculed by some of these supervisors. That is not supposed to happen. Now, what we're going to do tonight is go through the districts that have some competition, that have some conservative people running against some incumbents, and we're going to prove to you through their voting record on who they really are. So it doesn't matter what they say. They can say they are conservative when it comes to money. They can say they really are careful on how they spend their money, but you know, it doesn't matter what they say. What they did these last 2 years, and I'm going to share this with you, is what matters. So we're going to timestamp this video. You don't have to try to search through the districts. I'm going to go through the districts that have some competition from conservative people, and we're going to tell you what district they are, what areas of the county that they represent, and you can go look at the time stamping and go to where you want and see what these incumbents are doing. So I hope that works out for you. Talk is cheap, actions are what matters. We'll start with district number 5. This is the town of Beaver Dam, wards 3, 4, and 5. We have an incumbent. We call her Mrs. K. Mrs. Kavazanjian. I think I did pretty good there. Sorry if I blew it a little bit, but that's Mrs. K. And she was appointed a little while back, but we have someone running against her, Don Lunak. So let's see in the little time that she's been on there what her voting record is. On these first districts, when this voting record comes up for resolutions, I'm going to explain it in detail the first time. So you may want to listen to the first one or two to get an idea of what these resolutions are about. As I go on to new districts, I'm just going to reference the resolution number. I'm not going to go in detail because you already know what it's about. Going to save you some time there. But resolution 2167, we're just going to start with this borrowing for road repair. When the budget was introduced to the board, there was a public hearing. And this is the first year that the public hearing was held in the evening when people could come. We had 10 or 12 individuals that came to the public hearing to express their desires on what they liked or what they didn't like. Nearly all of them said, no borrowing for roads. So what did the Highway Committee do? They incorporated $9 million of borrowing for roads. They didn't listen. See what happens? People don't listen. That's why we are running against these incumbents. But they brought forward a $9 million and a $4.5 million borrowing resolution and a $10 million borrowing resolution, which was defeated each time. But who voted for it anyway? Also keep in the back of your mind that while these were going on, while these resolutions were being debated, the Highway Department already had $7.5 million sitting in their budget that could be used for roads. There was $3.5 million that they had planned on using for roads. There was $3.35 or something like that million that all of a sudden was discovered. They knew it was there, and if they didn't know it was there, we have big problems. If you don't know you have $3.5 million in your pocket that you can spend, And they came up with $450,000 just in 30 days when they were between some of these resolutions. So they had $7.5 million that was ready to spend and fix roads with, but they would not say we will do it with that. They wanted to borrow money instead. That's why we didn't go for this borrowing. There's a lot of things that can be fixed at the committee level and at the department level at the Highway Department, I believe, so that we don't have to put this on the backs of taxpayers. It can be done without that, so we don't have to pay for it the next 10 years. That's ridiculous. So, in District 5, those three resolutions she voted yes for. And I explained what that was all about, why we didn't need to do that. Let's see, 8 million. Resolution 2172, they were going to purchase 2 new self-propelled brooms. We want to spend money on roads. They are spending money on equipment. It's all very nice equipment. I'm not against nice equipment, but you have to have your priorities in order. She voted yes on those 2 brooms. 1 would have probably been enough. Let's be reasonable here. Resolution 2173, 4 new Mack trucks. It's nice to have these big trucks to run around, plow snow. They didn't get used a lot this year, but you never know. But it always has been 3 trucks. This year they wanted 4 trucks. They say they have to keep up a new fleet, a good fleet. Well, we're running around on poor roads. Let's back off a little bit. We have good equipment. We said use that money for roads, but she voted for the 4 trucks this year instead of the normal 3. We would have liked to see 2. Then also Resolution 2182, 2 new wheel loaders. The two wheel loaders they had already were only a year old, and they've got this great deal on 2 brand spanking new loaders, and they made this deal and they supposedly saved $4,000 or made $4,000 on the deal. You know what? What are we trying to do? Keep our machinery in tip-top new shape, or are we trying to fix the roads? I'm saying we have to look at this a little differently. So that's why we want you to vote for Don Lunak, because he wouldn't be for all this stuff like the incumbent is. Now we're going to District number 6. This is the town of Chester, Ward 1, town of Burnett, Ward 1, town of Leroy, Ward 1, town of Williamstown, Ward 1, and village of Kekoskee, Ward 1. The incumbent is Don Hilgendorf, and the person running against him is Jeff Breselow. Really think about this now. The resolution, okay, another thing, Don was also appointed over a year ago. So he's been on the board, he has never been elected, he's been appointed, and here's what he has done while he has been on the board. Resolution 20-38, a vote to buy a used paver. That was last year. We shouldn't be buying a used paver. I think, I'm not positive, but I believe you only put 100 hours on it last year. That's it. And we spent all this money on a used paver. You can rent one from neighboring counties too. Let's use our money for roads, not equipment. On the 2021 budget, last year's budget, there were many amendments. and we're just going to touch on a few of them. Amendment number 5, and we'll just get a little detail here because it's going to be coming up again with some of these people. A vote against removing the first $9 million from the budget for road repair. There weren't enough votes to get rid of that last year. So $9 million has gone on the budget last year. They didn't have to make that first payment this year for some reason. So they took the money that they had put aside for it into this year's budget, and they didn't budget for payment of that debt this year. So now, if you look at this year's budget, there's no borrowed money that we are making a payment on. There's actually $9 million, but since it was, since the money was set aside from last year, they just kept it off to keep the budget to look better, to make the budget look better. Figures lie and liars figure. You have to be careful about this type of thing. If the $9 million this year or $10 million this year would have went through, we would have had $18 to $19 million next year as new debt that we would have had to budget for. That's why we have to watch these things. You want freedom, right? You want to be free. You want to be able to have individual liberty. What does it take to do things that you want to do? It takes money. And what happens when you get taxed more and more, or when inflation just grows more and more? You have less discretionary spending money. You actually have less liberty. So we here at Dodge County and Free and Dodge want to get a control on that kind of stuff so that your freedom is maintained. So that's why we are against some of this kind of spending. Now, amendment number 8 of last year was a vote against removing funding to implement the McGrath wage study. You're going to hear about this McGrath wage study. It was $100 and some thousand they paid to do a study on proper wage levels and all kinds of stuff. They did not look at this by itself. What the administrator did was put the implementation of the McGrath wage study in the budget, $150 some thousand, just earmarked to incorporate and to implement that McGrath wage study. The supervisors back then, I wasn't on the board, some supervisors said, we don't want this just to be run through with the budget. We want to look at this separately. But the vote there to remove that money so it could be viewed separately was defeated, and Donald voted to keep that money in there. He didn't want to look at it separately. It's not the way we should be doing business. Amendments number 9 and 10 of last year voted against removing Thrive Ed from the budget. Now, Thrive Ed was an economic development service, you could say, an organization to help bring economic development into Dodge County. We were paying $135,000 every year and getting no measurables. Nothing was really happening. They claimed credit for some things here and there, but there was nothing really happening. Last year already they tried to get it removed from the budget, and Donald said, nope, we want to keep that there. Nobody wants to look at, is it really worth it or not? We have to start looking at the budget differently. So that was a vote from him. Resolution number 20 dash, I wrote that one kind of funny. 20-18, I think, voted against Thrive Ed wanted more money. Not only did we have that $135,000, we had another $20,000 budgeted for it, and there was an amendment to get rid of that. That amendment passed, but Donald voted against it. So he was just not into saving any money. He just loves to spend money. We need to relook at these type of things. Resolution 21-23, he voted against increased transparency. Whoa! Isn't that what we're looking for? Government transparency? It was so hard for supervisors to get materials that Supervisor David Guckenberger actually presented a new rule that said if there's material handed out at a committee meeting and there's a supervisor that's not on the committee that wants that material, he can request it and it has to be gotten to him pronto, at no expense. Because that subject is going to be coming before the full board anyhow, we need to have people knowing what's going on. What is wrong with that? Knowing what's going on at committee meetings that are held during the day when nobody can come? New materials that nobody else has? Don voted against that too. This isn't what we the people want. We want transparency. Well, it doesn't end there. Resolution 21-28, vote to allow expenses for a building remodel to be just, even though it wasn't budgeted, a major building remodel, to just pull it out of general fund. Just pull it out of general fund. See, we're supposed to budget for our expenses. There's this thing called a capital improvement plan that all the departments are supposed to follow. For the next 5 years, they have it all planned out as best you can. Here was a case where they just didn't do it. Why not? Why aren't they being held to what's proper policy? So what happens? They're short of money. They need money. We need to do this. Well, we didn't plan on it, but we really should do it. Let's pull it out of general fund. Well, that's the savings account. That's not how it's supposed to be run. We have to do this budget intelligently. So Don, he said, no, that's fine. Let's just pull it out of savings. Let's just get it done. Doesn't matter if we do it the wrong way. Let's just do it. Resolution 2131, voted to approve the county PTO policy for employees. This was a big one. PTO, paid time off. Instead of having all the separate days off and bereavement pay and sick days and vacation and all that, they put 3 of those into a paid time off one bucket. Now the HR committee rushed, I believe, rushed through at the end to get this put in place. They always said, well, we've talked about this for years. But you know what? Those first few years, they weren't doing anything worth a hoot about it. All of a sudden, it's like, we got to have to get this thing done now. And they were just pushing it. And I watched some of the meetings when they brought the new words in, the new language in for this PTO policy. The HR director at that time, Sarah Hinsey, she and her staff are pretty much who put all this verbiage together and then gave it to the HR committee and said, hey, this is what we think it should be. And it was rare to see the HR committee say, nope, that's not good, we're going to do it different. It was just like rubber stamp, rubber stamp, rubber stamp. Once in a while there was, no, I'm not good with this. One of the supervisors on the committee would think on his own and say, nope, that's not good. So they kind of pushed that through right at the end, and there were some questions asked at the 2 board meetings prior to when it was implemented on some problems with it. They did not want to look at that anymore. They just wanted to get this done, even though it's going to cost taxpayers more money in this first 10 to 15 years that it's instituted. And I know there's people that say, well, you don't know that for sure, and I have the paperwork at home of 3 different scenarios. There is a scenario where this is going to cost taxpayers more money, but we couldn't look at it. Nope. And he voted that in too, which I think a responsible reaction would have been, okay, let's just hold off. This was voted in September, not to be implemented until January. So there was time to say, let's just push this off till November or something. But nope, we had to do it right then and there. That's not the way we want to do county business here. So, Resolution 2149, we're not done yet. Voted to purchase a new 2021 wheel loader. This was prior to the 2 wheel loaders that were purchased this year. This was that one last year that, did they really need? I don't know. I wasn't involved a lot there, but there were many supervisors who voted against that, saying we don't need that, but Don voted for it. Spend that money, but remember, roads are getting bad, but we're going to keep our equipment looking really good. Well, let's see what else. Resolution 2150, voted to pay Thrive Ed above the agreed upon amount of money that the contract. Wow, get a load of that. They're getting paid $150,000 or so, maybe $135,000. Not doing much of anything. And now they have a new idea. They want to have a new program, they have a new project coming up. But you know what? We want some extra money for administrative costs. What's going on here? We're paying you to work for Dodge County, and now we want more money? And so many supervisors said, forget that, we're paying you enough already. What does Don say? Sure, give them some more money, no problem. And I'm trying to remember if that went through. It might have gone through, but on a vote coming further here yet, you'll see why they never got paid. So, what else we have here for Don? Amendment number 1 of this year's budget. Voted no to remove the unapproved $9 million for road repair. Remember, when the Highway Department and Highway Committee put this $9 million of borrowing into the budget, it was not yet approved by the full board to be borrowed. They just stuck it in there saying, well, you can take it out if you really don't want it. That's putting the cart before the horse. Do you see what's going on here in Dodge County? We have some renegade supervisors that are doing things their own way, and I don't believe the administrator was helping us any on this either, because this is the administrator's budget. Don't forget it. And he has since announced that he's going to retire now. But they put that in there figuring there's no way that we won't get this now. Well, that amendment was to try to pull that $9 million out before the budget was approved, and that amendment failed, but Donald Hilgendorf voted for that. He wanted to keep that in there, even though there was $7.5 million sitting in the Highway Department budget already for it. But we want that 9, right? If they didn't know the $7.5 million was sitting there, we have another problem. Now we have another resolution, 2149. What did Don do here? He voted to purchase a new 2021 wheel loader. I did that one already. Oh, we got to go to the next page. Sorry about that. Here we go. 2022 budget amendment number 3. Voted against terminating our contract with Thrive Ed. Remember, the previous year they tried to get rid of this Thrive Ed Economic Development Service. This year, we also put an amendment in to leave it go, to break the contract, because it takes 6 months to get out of that contract. You have to pay 6 months of money after you decide to get out. So we have to do that right away. This time, the amendment passed. The majority of supervisors said, you know what, we don't need their service. They aren't doing what they were supposed to do. We're paying too much money for nothing. But what did Don vote? Yes, we still want them here. We have to spend that money. Amendment number 5, he voted against diverting $400,000 of unnecessary equipment purchases in the Highway Department to road repair. Supervisors found equipment they were buying that they really didn't need. Said, hey, let's not buy that equipment and let's put that money into road repair since we're looking for all this money and our roads are trashed, you hear, right? Well, Don said, no, we want that equipment. We'll borrow the money to fix the roads. Let's just spend this money on equipment. This kind of thing has to stop. Resolution, we're not done with Don yet. You see this here? Resolution 2172 voted for the purchase of 2 new self-propelled brooms. We talked about that at the last time. Maybe we needed 1, maybe we didn't. I don't know. We just want 2. And Don said, sure, let's just get 2. Resolution 2173 voted for the purchase of 4 new Mack trucks. Remember we mentioned that? Why 4 all of a sudden? We have roads to fix. Why couldn't we just back down from 3 to 2 and take that $600,000 or it's a lot of money for these trucks, you know? But he said, yes, we'll buy those 4 trucks. Then we have resolutions 2167, 2183, and 21-100. We won't go into details because we did before. The borrowing of the $9 million, $4.5 million, and $10 million for road repair. They have $7.5 million already sitting there, but they won't say, we'll use that for road repair. No, we want $10 million to do that, and we'll save that $7.5 million for something else. I wonder what they kind of earmarked that for. Not new equipment, right? Nah, wouldn't think of it. Resolution 21-83, he voted yes to purchase 2 new wheel loaders to replace the 2 that were only 1 year old. Yep. All right. Vote for Jeff Breselow. We want to get new blood in that district supervisor seat. So, district number 9 now. Town of Hubbard, wards 1 and 2, village of Iron Ridge. An incumbent here is Andrew Johnson. He was appointed maybe 8-9 months ago. I can't be sure. Ross Purdy is running against him. Let's look at Johnson's voting record here. Resolution 21-23. I remember this was the very first meeting that he was sworn in on and voted on. It was the meeting where we had the resolution about transparency in government, which we talked about before. Let's make sure supervisors can get a hold of the paperwork that otherwise wouldn't be available because it's coming to the full board anyhow. Let's be transparent amongst the board. What did he vote? He said, no, we're transparent enough. His very first vote. Unbelievable, huh? Resolution 21-28, he voted for that building maintenance to be paid by the general fund that we mentioned before. Let's not worry about if we didn't budget for it. Let's just take it out of the savings and let's just get her done. We don't have to do things the right way. He voted yes for that. Resolution 21-31, he voted yes to adopting the PTO policy, even though he wasn't involved at all with the production of it. He didn't have time to really understand any questions, I don't believe, about some concerns. He just voted to put it right on through. Resolution 21-49, he said yes to that new 2021 wheel loader last year. 21-50, yes to the additional money to Thrive Ed, above and beyond the contracted money. He said yes to that too. And then we get to this year's budget. Amendment number 1, that's the amendment, remember, to remove the $9 million that was force-fed on Dodge County citizens in the 2022 budget. He voted to keep it on there. Even though, guess how much money was floating around in the Highway Department budget? I think you might remember that number pretty soon. So he voted for that. Let's say he voted against that amendment to get rid of that borrowing. Amendment number 5 of this last year's budget voted against diverting $400,000 from machinery purchases at the Highway Department to highway. He didn't want that either. Let's keep the good machinery coming, the good equipment. Resolution 21-72, yes to 2 new self-propelled brooms. There we go again. Do you notice how these people that we're running against are all voting the wrong way on the same things? We have to get our people in there. Resolution 21-73, yes to how many new Mack trucks? Not 2, not 3, 4 new Mack trucks. But our roads aren't good. Here we go. Then the 3 resolutions for borrowing $9 million, $4.5 million, and $10 million. Yes, 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 all the way through. But how much money was sitting in the budget? Whoa. Resolution 21-82. Yes to 2 new wheel loaders to replace the 2 that are 1 year old. I don't even think they were out of warranty yet. Did they ever change the oil? I heard they didn't, but I don't know for sure. Anyways, that is the voting record of Andrew. Vote for Ross Purdy in that district. What district was that again, Ashley?
9.
9. District 9, Ross Purdy. So now we are going to be in district number 15. Town of Leroy, Ward 2. Town of Lomira, Wards 1 and 2. Town of Theresa, Ward 2. And Village of Brownsville. This district has been changed with the new districting boundaries. So the incumbent now for this district is Dick Fink. We have Mike Butler running against him. So let's look at Dick Fink's voting record. By the way, you will notice that he likes highways and highway department, but he's on the highway committee. So you'll see some of his votes here too when it comes to that. Amendment number 5 in last year's budget. Remember, that's the amendment that we were trying to, or some supervisor were trying to remove the $9 million of borrowing from last year's budget. He obviously said, no, we want that money. He voted against removing it from the budget. In last year's budget, amendment number 8, he voted against removing funds reserved for a forced implementation of the McGrath wage study. I talked about that. We wanted to look at it independently. He said, nope, let's just keep it in the budget. We have that money set aside. I believe it was like $180,000 or something like that to implement the wage study in the county. He just said, yep, just go do it. Resolution 20-62 voted for 3 new trucks back then. See, that was when they were getting 3 a year. 2-year budget ago, he voted to get those 3, voted against more transparency, 21-23. He didn't want supervisors getting all that information either from other supervisors' committee members. That's wrong. Why wouldn't you want transparency and make it easy for all supervisors to know what's going on? He voted no to that. Resolution 21-28 voted yes to taking all that money from the general fund to do a major building repair. We don't want to budget for it properly. We'll just take it out of the savings. Resolution 21-31, yes to the PTO plan adoption. There were major questions yet to be answered to save taxpayers' money. There was 4 months cushion before it could be passed and still be implemented on January 1st. But no, just run it right through. He voted yes on that too. Resolution 21-49, yes to the new Volvo loader. Resolution 21-50, yes to more Thrive Ed money, above and beyond what was contracted. He says, go ahead, let's pay him more. Oh, why not? We have the money, right? But we don't have any roads. And he's on the highway committee, but he's throwing money at all this stuff. 21-50, yes to the more Thrive Ed money. 21-72, yes to 2 new self-propelled brooms. There we go again. He also voted to do that. Resolution 21-73, yes to 4 new Mack trucks. He was another one that voted for that. And by the way, that did pass. They did get their 4 new Mack trucks. They didn't want to give up 2 of them to put money towards the roads. They didn't want to give up a broom to put towards the roads. They didn't want to give up those loaders to put towards the roads. This has to be changed. Resolution 21-73, that's the 4 trucks. Resolution 21-67, 21-83, and 21-100, that's the 3 amounts of borrowing for roads, $9 million, $4.5 million, $10 million. He said we gotta have it, even though there's how much sitting in the bank, in the department? Resolution 21-82, yes to the 2 new loaders this year to replace the 2 that are 1 year old. District. So vote for Mike Butler. I'm getting names mixed up. Vote for Mike Butler in District 15 by Brownsville, Lomira, Theresa. District 17, Town of Hustisford, Wards 1 and 2, Town of Lebanon, Ward 1, Village of Hustisford, Wards 1 and 2, the incumbent, Larry Bischoff, and we have Sandy Jones running against him. Let's look at the voting record of Larry Bischoff. Resolution 20-06. Now we're going back 2 years because that's when he was elected last. Oh, here's a new one for you. Back then, the chairman, vice chairman, and second vice chairman were caught having an illegal meeting in secret in one of their homes with the county administrator. Whoa, what are they doing that for? Anyways, it was found out that they did that, and Supervisor David Guckenberger said, you know what, this does not happen, it's illegal. So he presented a resolution that basically slapped him on the wrist. They actually should have been taken behind the woodshed, but it just slapped him on the wrist. Don't ever do this again. If there's county business to be done, it's done in open session, and it's done before the full board, period. Guess what Larry Bischoff did with this resolution? He voted against it. like he was saying, no, that's okay, you can meet in secret, you can do county business in secret. That's not good. That was Larry Bischoff's vote. He voted against that resolution. Resolution 20-38, yes to that used paver that we could have got by without. In last year's budget, amendment number 1, they wanted to remove that first $9 million. He voted no, keep it in. Amendment number 8, he said no to removing funds for forced implementation of McGrath again. He said just put it in there. We don't have to look at it separately, just put it in. Amendment number 9, no to removing Thrive Ed, you know, that organization that's supposed to bring economic activity and business but isn't doing anything. He said, no, we'll keep it in there. Let's keep spending money on that. That's the amendment number 9. Now we have resolution 2162. Yes to 2 new trucks for the highway department. 20-88, no to cancel that Thrive Ed organization. He said, no, even though it's been shown that they aren't really doing much, we're going to keep on spending money on that. It looks good, I think, is what he thought. I don't know for sure, but everybody kind of said, that's kind of a good thing to do. We should be encouraging economic development, so if it costs that, it costs that. We're trying as hard as we can, right? Resolution 2123, no to increased transparency. There's that resolution again. He didn't want increased transparency either. There was a certain group of people that wanted to keep control of how things were done, and it looks like we might have another person here doing that. 2128, yes to general fund money to major building repair work. Resolution 2149, yes to a purchase of a new loader. 2150, yes to additional money to Thrive Ed above and beyond contracted agreement. In this year's budget, amendment number 1 to remove that unapproved $9 million of borrowing, he said, nope, we don't want to remove that. We want to do that. Amendment number 3, no to remove Thrive Ed. You know, that organization that isn't worth the money, but in this last budget, enough supervisors saw that and said, yeah, we're going to remove it. It is gone, and it's now done internally. We haven't removed our interest in economic development, but we are handling it ourselves in Dodge County. But what did he vote? He voted, no, we don't want to remove it. Amendment number 5, no to remove that $400,000 from equipment purchases to roads. Didn't want to do that either. Resolution 2168, no to equal hourly COLA wage increases. Here's a new one. The budget was presented to the board with a 1.25% cost of living adjustment for employees. Nothing was said through the whole budget process that this was not enough or it was too much or whatever. And then after the budget was passed, within 3 weeks, all of a sudden, that wasn't enough. You should have known better. We need to give them another 2% cost of living adjustment. Obviously, things were changing fast in the economy, but I submit that there's no way businesses can keep up to inflation, match inflation, by paying their people that much more. You will go out of business. Everybody has to bear the brunt of what's going on in the economy. But the board agreed on a 2% increase. Now, what happens if someone's making $100,000 and someone's making $50,000 and you get a 2% increase? That person that's making more is going to get more increase. Now, does that loaf of bread cost more for that person to buy? Obviously not. So some supervisors said that isn't right. Let's take this money that would be considered a 2% cost of living adjustment increase on top of the 1.25% they have already, and let's divide it up equally between all employees, equally on a per hour basis. And that's what we did. It passed, but guess who didn't want to do that? Guess who wanted to keep it on the percentage basis? The person we're talking about right here, Larry Bischoff. He said no to making that equal for all employees. They want to convince you that supervisors don't appreciate employees. We do. But there are some department heads that are making it hard for employees to believe that's true. But we went and got more money for 2/3 of the employees than they would have gotten if it would have been on a percentage basis. That's what we did there. So, but he voted against that. What else did he vote against? Resolution 2172, 2 new self-propelled brooms again. He said, yep, we need both of them. 2173, 4 new trucks. Let's get them. Our roads are crap, but we need the trucks. Then we have those 3 resolutions for the borrowing of the 9 and the 4.5 and the 10 million. He said, yep, let's do it. Even though there's 7.5 million sitting in, you got it. Resolution 2182, yes to 2 new loaders to replace the 2 that are 1 year old. So that was District 17. Vote for Sandy Jones. We'd like to see a new supervisor in that district. Now we're going to move to District 18. Town of Clyman, Town of Lowell, Ward 1, Village of Clyman, Village of Lowell, Village of Reeseville. The incumbent is Jeff Caine, and Ajay Schnitzler is running against him in this election. Well, let's look at the voting record of Jeff Caine. Resolution 20-06 of 2 years ago, we're starting, refused to condemn the illegal meeting of the chairman, vice chairman, and second vice chairman with the administrator doing county business in secrecy. He said, that's okay. I'm not going to condemn that. That's okay. It is so wrong. Resolution 20-06, that was. Okay, last year's budget, amendment number 5, no to removing $9 million from the property tax levy for borrowing for roads. Obviously, Jeff is the chairman of the highway committee. He wants that money. He will not look for a different way to get those roads done. Amendment number 8, no to stop the Forrest McGrath study implementation. We mentioned why that needs to be looked at independently, but he said, no, let's just run it right through. Amendment number 9, no to cancel Thrive Ed last year. They couldn't get it canceled last year, so they had to pay another $135,000 to $150,000 for that. Amendment number 10, no to removing additional money to go to Thrive Ed, even though they weren't coming. Oh, Jeff Caine was on the board of Thrive Ed. That might have had something to do with it too, right? Resolution 20-88, no to cancel Thrive Ed. They tried to cancel it. He said, nope, we're going to keep it. Resolution 2110, no to, here's a new one. When COVID hit last year, in March of 2020, Dodge County Board declared a state of emergency. Nobody knew what was going to happen. So there was a state of emergency declared. The chairman then had more power to make decisions on his own when it comes to reacting to the emergency. You can understand why that would be a good idea. And that's what was instituted in March of 2020. Well, this was April of 2021. 13 months had passed. And there were some supervisors just hanging on to that state of emergency, that declaration of emergency. They just were hanging on to that. And there were some supervisors saying, hey, it's been over a year. This is ridiculous. This is not what this is supposed to be like. This is not what we are supposed to be doing. Let's release the county. Let's get back to some normal life. So there was a resolution brought forward to cancel that declaration of emergency. Resolution 21-10. After 13 months of being in that declaration of emergency, when there was no emergency anymore, Jeff Caine voted to keep it on. That's not looking out for the county. I don't believe you can even convince anybody that would be looking out for the county. We were sick of this. We want to get back to creating a life and business that was there before. Resolution 2128, yes to that general fund money being used to fix a building. 2131, yes to adopting the PTO policy, even though there were some very real questions that needed answering yet. And there was time to answer them. He said, nope, let's just do it. 2149, yes to purchase the new loader back then. 2150, yes, to give additional money to Thrive Ed, even though they weren't contracted to get it. Now, in this year's, in the budget we passed this year for 2022, amendment number 1, we wanted to remove that $9 million of unapproved road borrowing. He, of course, said, no, we want that in there. Amendment number 3, cancel Thrive Ed. He said no, but the supervisors canceled that contract anyhow, but he was against it yet. Amendment number 5, no to moving that $400,000 from stuff to roads. He said no. 2172, that 2 new self-propelled brooms. We need those brooms to keep those roads clean that are falling apart, right? He voted yes for those instead of saying, let's use that money for roads. 2173, yes for 4 new trucks. He wanted those too. Then those 3 resolutions for the 3 times they tried to borrow money for this year's budget. That was February, March, and April of 2022. He voted yes on every one of those, even though there was how much money sitting in their budget that they could use to fix roads? 2182, yes to those 2 new loaders to replace the 2 that are only 1 year old. And I know there's deals out there that you can break even, make money on, but you know what? Let's concentrate. Where are our priorities? Let's concentrate not on our equipment because it's really good. Let's concentrate on the roads. So that is Jeff Caine's district number 18, is that?
Yep.
Vote for Ajay Schnitzler for supervisor in District 18, Lowell, Reeseville area. Now we're going to come to District 24. This district is the City of Juneau wards 1, 2, and 3. Incumbent, Dennis Schmidt. Competition, Jeremy Johnson. Well, let's look at Dennis Schmidt's voting record. Resolution 20-06, going back 2 years ago. Remember those secret meetings between the chairman, vice chairman, second vice chairman, administrator, and one of their homes over a county issue that they did not ever bring before the full board? Dennis Schmidt said, that's okay. We can let them do that. Wink, wink. I don't get it. All right, 2021 budget, amendment number 1, last 2 budgets ago. No to removing the $9 million that was put in there for borrowing for roads. He voted against that. Amendment number 8, no to removing funds to be used to implement the McGrath study. We wanted to look at that independently from the budget, but they just sort of ran it through with the budget and it could never be done. He voted to do that. 2062, yes to 3 new trucks. I mean, the county has to keep up with their good equipment here. Resolution 2088, no to canceling Thrive Ed. They tried to do it 2 years ago and he voted not to cancel it. 2010, no to cancel the emergency declaration of Dodge County. Another person who said 13 months isn't long enough to be in a declared emergency. We want to be in it longer. He voted not to end it. By the way, it did get canceled on that vote. They were in the minority, but why wouldn't you want to free up the county that you're supposedly representing and to look out for when there is no emergency anymore? There's something else that was going on. So he voted against that. 2128, yes to using the general funds for building repairs and maintenance, and I think he's on the facilities committee. That might have, I mean, it was very dear to him there too, but it's like, let's budget it the correct way. Let's just not use general fund for that kind of stuff. 2131, yes to adopt the PTO policy. Obviously, there was time to look at a few more things, but just run it right through. Get her done, right? Get her done. Well, that isn't always the best idea. 2149, yes to buy the new loader last year. 2150, yes to additional money for Thrive Ed above and beyond the contracted amount. Just throw money. You know, I think that he actually says he was on the airwaves and he said he was Oh, how did he say it? You remember that, Ashley?
That he was for fiscal conservative.
He was a fiscal conservative individual. He was conservative on spending money. Well, let's just see if his words line up with his votes here, okay? Jeremy Johnson for supervisor. Resolution 2131, yes to adopt a PTO policy, even though it's going to cost us more money in the next 10, 15 years, without looking at it. Resolution 2149, yes to buy a new loader. I bet you we could have got by without it. We have roads to fix, right? 2150, yes to additional money to Thrive Ed above and beyond their contracted amount. Just throw some more money at them. That's conservatism. Let's see, 2022 budget, this last year's budget, amendment number 1. No to removing the $9 million of borrowing from the budget, which wasn't approved yet. He was going to help run that through too. 2172, yes for 2 new self-propelled brooms. Like we said, we wouldn't want to fix roads with that money. 2173, yes to 4 new trucks. Then we have those 3 resolutions from February, March, and April for all that money to fix roads when how much money was sitting in the account to do so. He voted yes on all those. Resolution 2182, yes to 2 new loaders to replace the ones that were 1 year old. You know, I feel like I'm just a tape recorder that's putting on reverse. These are the individuals that aren't fiscally conservative, as you can see. Words or actions, which ones are we going to follow? So that was District 24. Juneau. Vote for Jeremy Johnson. Now, we're getting there now. District 30. City of Beaver Dam wards 1, 2, 3, and 4. Incumbent, Haley Kenovan. She was appointed shortly, I think it was June or July of last year. She was appointed. And Kristin Bartz is running against her. Let's look at Kenovan's voting record since she's been in. Resolution 2088, no to cancel Thrive Ed. We've been through it. We needed to get rid of it, but she voted no. 2123, no to increase transparency. Whoa, here we go. We wouldn't want supervisors to know what's going on with other supervisors and other committees, right? We want to make it difficult for them to get their hands on that stuff. She said, nope, we're transparent enough. We're never transparent enough. She voted against that one. 2128, yes to general fund money transfer for building repairs. Yeah, we don't have to budget for it. Let's just take it out of the bank, you know. Let's see, 2150, yes to give Thrive Ed extra funding. She was okay with that. 2172, yes to 2 new self-propelled brooms. 2173, yes to 4 new trucks. Then we have those 3 resolutions for that borrowing in February, March, and April of this year for road repair, $9 million, $4.5 million, $10 million. Yes, yes, yes. Even though there was how much money? And all the supervisors knew that money was there. The last vote, everybody knew that $7.5 million was already available. Still voted yes, let's borrow 10 more. Hey, we can borrow ourselves rich. What a grand idea. Why didn't I think of that? 2182, yes for 2 new loaders to replace the ones that were 1 year old. Same old, same old. We need something different. So that's district number 30. Vote for Kristin Bartz. District 31. Here we have City of Beaver Dam wards 21, 22, 23, and 24. Incumbent Burnett versus Lusji. We have Daniel Lusji running against Kevin Burnett. Let's look what Kevin's voting record is. 2021 budget, when that was in progress, amendment number 5, no to remove that $9 million from the budget for fixing roads. Amendment number 8, no to remove funds to implement the McGrath study. We didn't get a chance to look at it all by itself. He says no, just run her through. 20-62, yes for 3 new trucks. Back then, 2088, no to cancel ThriveEd, even though it wasn't performing. Oh, we'll just keep throwing our money at it. It sounds good, it looks good. We have to be concerned about economic development. We are, but we're doing it better now than ever before in-house. And that's the way that we should have been doing it all along, but he voted no on that back then. 21-28, yes to the general fund transfer to fix up the building. 21-31, yes to adopt the PTO policy without answering the questions some supervisors had yet about it, even though there was time before it was implemented. He just said, no, run her through. 21-49, yes to purchase 1 new loader back then. 21-50, yes to extra money to ThriveEd. Yep, they're getting a lot of money and they're not doing much, but we're going to just throw more money at it anyhow, right? This year's budget that we just passed for 2022, amendment number 1, wanted to remove that $9 million that was not approved for borrowing yet. He said, no, we're going to keep that in there. We're going to do that. Amendment number 5, no to move that $400,000 from equipment purchases to fix the roads. No, let's just we're going to keep buying equipment. We'll borrow money for roads. Don't worry about it. It's all good. Resolution 2172, yes for 2 new self-propelled brooms. 2173, yes for how many new trucks? 4 new trucks. Then we have those 3 resolutions from February, March, and April of this year. $9 million, $4.5 million, $10 million. We're going to borrow to fix the roads, even though there's how much money sitting there to spend? They still, and they knew it, this last one, everybody knew it, and they still voted, yes, let's borrow $10 million, even though we have 7.5 there, and originally we only wanted 9. Unbelievable. So, what else we have? Resolution 2182, yes for 2 new loaders. Same old, same old. That's why I want you to consider these things. There's a reason that these people who are just like you are running against these supervisors. They're not making the right decisions. They're not fiscally conservative. They are spend, spend, spend. And we want things changed. It's the way it's been for the last 10, 15 years, who knows how long. I've been involved now almost 2 years, been a supervisor for 6 months. I've learned a lot. These individuals that are running against the incumbents, they want to help Dodge County also, like Free and Dodge does. So don't listen to the hoopla that they say about how bad anything is. Oh, we have to spend money to keep government running. No, we have to spend money fiscally conservative ways to keep the government running. We just don't want to keep on taxing and keep on borrowing. So I thought this would be interesting. Look at the track record of these people. Don't listen to what they say. I don't care what they say. Here's what matters. How they voted is what makes the difference. So get out there on April 5th, and if you know anybody in these districts, please tell them to watch this video or go on freeanddodge.com to get a little more information about who's running. We want this to work out for the people, for our individual liberty. And remember, if you don't have money, you don't have freedom. And we're working at making it all fit together because I believe there is enough money within Dodge County's budget to take care of Dodge County just fine and not have to tax the people more. So, thank you for joining us for this video. I know it was kind of long, but we covered a lot of things, and I even hope you understand a little more about what's going on in Dodge County and why we are standing for what we are standing. We the people are free in Dodge, and we are going to make Dodge County a better place to live. Thank you.